Witten didn't talk to me when I was in Dallas. He didn't help me. Very rarely did we talk. I hated him. I hated Witten.
I don't think Roger Goodell's doing a good job. He can find me, say what you want him to say, but doesn't do anything to put his body in any harm. But yet, he gets to make every decision. Congratulations, NFLPA.
Some people that you want to be a leader is not the guy that's the leader. And everyone in the locker room knows that this is not the leader, but this is what you want the face of the team to look like.
Hell yeah, college players should get paid. NCAA gets paid, Rose Bowl gets paid, everybody gets paid but the people that's making a product. In some countries, they call that slavery.
We just had a bunch of on the roster. That's why we didn't win games. And coaches like the
So love it or hate it, they speak honestly and freely, as always. Stephen A., I want to start with you here. Yeah, do you like the comments?
But first things first. My birthday's Friday. Damn it, I'm here thinking it's Thursday, so I apologize to everybody for missing.
Don't worry, we know about your birthday. You just be in studio, okay?
But I will be there.
Okay,
I will be there.
we know.
Absolutely.
We're prepared.
Kevin Hart is coming in studio on my birthday. How the hell am I going to miss that? But I will say this, getting back to the Bennett brothers, their comments, I have mixed emotions about it. The things that they say are not necessarily false. Particularly with Martellus, I definitely respect his openness. Him talking about Jason Witten and how Jason Witten wasn't helpful. Him calling a bunch of his teammates the B word. Because, well, I have to admit, on occasion, particularly with Jay Cutler being quarterback for them, I'm not going to call them that, but they didn't look good. Let's just leave it at that for PC purposes on a Walt Disney platform. They didn't look good, all right? With that being said, I am sort of getting to the point where I'm seeing the Bennett brothers, particularly Michael, just talking a little bit too much and asking myself, what's the gain here? Where's this going to get you? At some point in time, particularly with Michael Bennett, who was whining about not getting the money he thought he deserved, they're going to ask whether or not you're worth, is your mouth worth the money that you covet? Your game is not just the only thing that's taken into consideration. And by the way, that's just not about him. That's about me. That's about other people. I'm quite sure this company from time to time asks themselves, am I worth the headache that I can be? My answer is an emphatic yes. But nevertheless, it is a question that obviously gets asked from time to time throughout my career because I'm going to speak my mind. But look at the platform and the medium that I'm in. If I were a professional athlete whose game had to speak for him, as opposed to me, where talking is my profession, that would be entirely different. I just think that Michael Bennett is getting in his own way. I think some of the things that he's done are counterproductive. In the case of Martellus, I feel less so in that fashion, particularly because I feel sorry for him because of the years of frustration he was subjected to, first by being a Dallas Cowboy, okay, and then secondly, by having to play with Jay Cutler. Talk about people that have been subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. It would be Martellus Bennett. So I have a little bit more sympathy for him than I do for Michael. But I do find myself asking the question, are they getting in their own way? And I think we all need to ask ourselves those questions from time to time in our lives and in our careers. And I think Michael and Martellus, more so Michael than Martellus, is getting to that point right now.
I like these guys because they say what's on their mind, usually, especially Michael. But this time, Michael, as you said, Stephen A., he's saying stuff that's not necessarily untrue, but he's not breaking new ground. Yeah, no kidding. College athletes are exploited. Yeah, a lot of people don't like Goodell, although the fact that he doesn't play football, how can the commissioner play football and then be commissioner of the league? He's not breaking new ground, but what he's saying to me is uncontroversial. Martellus here is the guy who made news because he used Witten's name. He said he hated Jason Witten. To me, that's news. One of the best tight ends in football at the moment is Martellus Bennett, and he's talking about one of the great tight ends I've seen Jason Witten, who's considered this team player, but he's saying really wasn't helpful. He put his own, it sounds like he's saying Jason Witten put his own interests as a player ahead of the team, which is not Jason Witten's reputation, by the way. And then he used the word he used to describe the Chicago Bears, which is going to make its rounds, obviously, in the media and in NFL locker rooms, especially the Bears. That, to me, is actually newsworthy. He's actually saying new stuff here. And by the way, Martellus Bennett went from, he was on the Giants not that long ago, B-plus tight end, who wanted to get paid like an A-plus, I always thought, to a guy who on the Patriots sure looks like an A-plus so far.
Yeah, Stephen A. says we all have to ask ourselves this question, whether or not they're getting in their own way. I think we all also know the answer. The answer is yes, Stephen A. They're getting in their own way. Here's the thing. This was based on a profile. It's an E60 piece coming out tonight. It was based on a profile as well by Mina Kimes in ESPN, the magazine. Great profile, these two guys. There's a line in the profile where they addressed J.J. Watt, and they said everybody loves J.J. Watt, but nobody really likes J.J. Watt. Well, that's kind of how I feel about the Bennett brothers. How do you like these guys coming out of this? See, the thing is, they get this reputation that they're the truth tellers, tell it like it is, ultimate in authenticity. That's not what I hear. I hear guys that sound kind of contrived. The purpose, what the end game is, Stephen A., is to get attention. They're saying anything to get attention, and that would be fine if it was benign, like telling a diner at a restaurant to wrap it up randomly. Some dude just sitting around, wrap it up, wear a condom, giving out free advice, telling another guy, I don't eat American chocolates. That's Michael saying, I don't eat American chocolates. Random, odd quotes and sayings and anything to get attention. That's benign and somewhat harmless, but it's transparent as well. You're just getting people to look at you. But then going in on guys like Jason Witten, Max, it's not just one of the best tight ends you've seen in your time. He's a Hall of Fame tight end. Huh. He has a pristine reputation. On one side of the ledger is everyone Jason Witten's ever played with, and on the other is Martellus Bennett, a guy who couldn't beat him out, who had to leave those Dallas Cowboys, Stephen A., that was so tough. Oh, yeah, such a tough situation because he couldn't beat out Jason Witten, who threw Jay Cutler under the bus, by the way, the only guy who's ever produced a Pro Bowl season for Martellus Bennett, and called an entire team the B word. This is
the only guy for long who gave him a Pro Bowl season.
These are guys that just want attention, Stephen A. That's all it is, and that's not authentic.
You said something that I want to put you on pause about. First of all, when you talk about Jason Witten, I do think Jason Witten is class personified. I had the pleasure of meeting him and interviewing him at Super Bowl week when we did our radio show out there for Sirius XM. And Jason Witten is class personified, and he is a future Hall of Famer. I believe that the Bennett brothers are truth tellers. I don't believe that they're people that are just looking for attention. I do believe that they speak what's on their mind, that they're honest and authentic in that regard. Maybe there are some things they shouldn't say and some things they shouldn't be so open about, but I do believe they're being open and they're honest. You ask them a question, they're going to give you an answer. But in the case of Jason Witten, here's the problem with what you're saying, Will, and I'm not faulting Jason Witten for this at all. Jason Witten wasn't very helpful to Martellus Bennett, according to Martellus Bennett. Fair enough. Martellus Bennett is a tight end. So is Jason Witten. As far as Jason Witten is concerned, you come in there trying to take his job. He ain't having that. I don't blame him one bit. But the problem is, because Jason Witten is so revered by the Fourth Estate, which happens to be us, it can build resentment towards those on the come up because he's given this imagery of being such a pristine individual, so above reproach, never somebody that engages in a kind of frivolity or pettiness, or dare we say, unethical sort of competitiveness per se. I'm not saying that's him here. I'm saying if you're Martellus Bennett, you have every right to assume that and feel a bit chagrined over it because you're looking at it and saying, he's got this image, y'all don't even know the half of it.
Yeah,
so I do understand where Martellus is coming from in that regard,
but
and I think that needs to be said.
Yes, and that's if Martellus Bennett is accurate and true. We should hear from James Hanna, Gavin Escobar, all the other tight ends that couldn't beat Jason Witten. Now, what do they think of Jason Witten?
But none of them are
Martellus. They have a similar
opinion?
None of them are Martellus Bennett. Martellus Bennett, you can see right now, might be the best tight end in football so far this season. He's having an awesome season. partly because he's on an awesome franchise, but also because he's very talented. He's never been not good. So it's a little unfair to compare him to other tight ends who didn't beat out Jason Witten.
Max, they're not talking,
because the idea could be, why didn't Jason Witten take me under his wing and help me to help the team? That seems to be the point.
You're not talking about just the performance. What I'm saying, Will, is this. Will is speaking to those players that also competed against Jason Witten for his spot. How do they feel about him from an emotional perspective?
Right.
Will, what I would say to you is that Jason Witten may not have vibed with Martellus Bennett the way he vibed with them.
And that's pretty easy. That's just a personality clash. Hold on, Max. I just want to. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that the Bennett brothers are liars. I'm not saying that everything they say is simply false and attention-seeking. There can be things they say that I think are true, that I agree with. I agreed, Max, about the NCAA. I agree with Michael Bennett on that. But what you get the impression from the Bennett brothers is this, and this was in Mina Kimes' piece as well. You begin to feel like an audience member. Every time you're around the Bennett brothers, you're not really with the Bennett brothers. You're not really having a conversation. You're just an audience member for whatever punchline or witticism or attention-seeking opinion they might have. And in the end, I just don't think I love guys like that. I know guys like that. That's not my kind of guy.
There's an E60 special on them because that is consumable. That's sellable. The media desires it because the presumption is there's an audience for this. And so that may be like a feedback loop where they then give you more of the performance because it sells and builds their brand. All that may be true. And I don't think that Michael said much that we don't already know. I mean, I don't think it was untruthful, but yeah, okay, I get it. I agree with most of what he said. But Martellus did make news with the Witten stuff. And to your point about how it's like, well, it's just him seeking attention, I don't think Witten was ever threatened by another tight end, like he must have been in terms of competition with Bennett. I think that's a safe presumption to make and assumption to make. And Bennett is giving us information here. We can do with it what we wish, but he's saying, look, when it came to a guy who may have been a threat to Witten, he wasn't exactly being helpful to me. That's new information.
I'll just add this on. Martellus Bennett's been in 4 locker rooms in 6 years, right? Changed teams 4 times. 2 of those locker rooms right now. It doesn't seem like he fit in very well. Is it those locker rooms? Is it the Cowboys and Bears? Or is it Martellus Bennett?
Well, I mean, my retort to that would be you don't know the answer.
That's fair. That's right.
And in fairness to you, I don't know the answer either. Neither does Max or anybody else. But if you're sitting in his shoes, one of the things you have to pay attention to, Will, is preferential treatment. There is no question that preferential treatment gets accorded to Jason Witten. Now, he may deserve it.
Right, he's Hall of Fame.
Wait a minute. He may deserve it because of his credentials. But you know what? Some would argue T.O. deserved it because of what he produced on the field. The flip side is that he didn't have the same personality. We all know that Jason Witten, in concert with Tony Romo, facilitated the exodus of Terrell Owens from Dallas because, Jerry Jones once committed to keeping T.O. and then in a matter of days changed his mind, or purportedly after having conversations with some of these dudes. So if you know this backdrop, you have to take that into consideration. You don't get to sit there because you're a Dallas Cowboy fan and you respect the hell out of Jason Witten, and rightfully so, and all of this stuff, and just gloss over those realities and how it could potentially impact somebody like a Martellus Bennett. Because Martellus Bennett can play. He is no scrub. He shows up to work. He comes to produce. And what he said was, he never said Jason Witten couldn't play. He never said Jason Witten wasn't a professional. He never said that Jason Witten wasn't a future Hall of Famer. He basically said Jason Witten treated me like crap. That's basically what he said. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know if any of us is qualified to dismiss that.
I think if I were in the league, I'd rather have my locker next to Jason Witten than Martellus Bennett, based upon everything we know.
Well, except like take T.O. for an example. They run him out of town. He immediately goes to a Super Bowl, and he's the best player on the field in the Super Bowl. That's not Jason Witten or Tony Romo. So
that's
just
fair,
because,
Max.
And the point is that sometimes the media chooses its darlings. And I agree with you, Jason Witten, for very good reason, is a media everyone likes him because he's such a great player and he has a sterling reputation as a teammate. That's why this is news.
Right.
It's T.O. going to the Super Bowl and balling out, who's not the media darling, and now it's Martellus Bennett on the Patriots and balling out, who is not at least beloved by the media, even if we pay attention to him.
Before we go to break, I just want to piggyback on what Stephen A. said earlier, because you were saying you don't see how people could see them as likable and they're not real. I've spent quite a bit of time around them. I was with them for the NFL draft in 2015 when I was with NFL Network, and I promise you, they are as real as they come, and it's authentic. It's just that they're not seeking attention. It's that they're speaking freely. They actually say something, unlike most players in the NFL. So, of course, they're going to garner attention. They're creative. I see you giving me the side.
No,
They're creative. They're free thinkers.
My perception is through these profile pieces and what I read, and I will totally respect your personal experience and what you can tell me there.
And they can have a conversation and not be an audience member.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Everybody can't be in front of them. Molly, your point is valid, but everybody hasn't met them. Everybody can't be in front of them. Will, I get totally where you're coming from, and I respect it. All I'm saying is, based just on that alone, you're still wrong, because in the end, Martellus Bennett has a right to sit up there and say, excuse me, my personal experience with this dude is something that's been glossed over.
And speaking of the fourth estate, the filter through which you're perceiving it, which is legitimate, and this is maybe how it's being received by many, is our filter. And our filter is exploiting their personalities.